Hello everybody. I am about to make our first video for science for week 2. So if you will, get out your little handy dandy vertebrate reference sheet and I'll get set up. There we go. All right, this video will contain Monday and Tuesday's work. All right, so remember, this is a review. We spent a lot of time talking about vertebrates, which are animals that have backbones. So mammals, fish, birds, reptiles, and amphibians. There's 5 different groups. And if you remember, we fall in the mammal group because we have hair, we are warm-blooded, we give live birth, and babies drink milk from the mother. Okay, so same as elephants, pigs, rabbits, all that. All right, so our work for this week is basically just a big review. It's going to ask a lot of different questions about the different animal types and what category they fall under and why. Okay, so it's very important that you use your reference sheet because it basically has all the answers on it. Okay. All right, so looking at Monday's work, number 1 says amphibians spend part of their lives in water and part of their lives on land. Therefore, amphibians, A, have live birth, B, are warm-blooded, C, prefer the water over the land, or D, breathe with gills and lungs sometime during their life. All right, so what's helpful about these papers is they have pictures that can help. All right, so we were talking about a frog, an amphibian. A frog falls under the category of amphibian. And I'm going to look at my reference sheet. Amphibian is in, oh, let me turn this light off. There we go. Amphibian is in green. Okay, so we know their body covering, they're smooth and wet. They have they're cold-blooded, which means if it's cold outside, their blood is cold. If it's warm outside, their blood is warm. What type of breathing do they have? Well, they use gills when they're born. Remember, frogs are born as tadpoles and they are in the water. Then they grow legs, they lose their tail, and boom, they're a frog and they live on land and on water. So they develop lungs later. They hatch from eggs. Mothers do not feed milk to their young. And we've got examples of frog, toad, salamander. Okay, so I think one of these answers our question. So let's look again. Okay, do frogs have live birth? No. They're born from eggs. 2, are they warm-blooded? No, they are cold-blooded. C, do they prefer the water over the land? Well, it doesn't say their preference. Okay, that's like an opinion question. And then D, they breathe with gills and lungs sometime during their life. Right there. They have gills when they're tadpoles, lungs when they're frogs. Okay, number 2 is another frog amphibian question. It says, are amphibians warm-blooded, true or false? Well, we know because it says right here they are cold-blooded. So this is an incorrect statement. It is false. All right, number 3, another frog question it looks like. Number 3, amphibians blank rather than having live birth. Okay, so we know we're talking about how they give birth. So we're going to look right here in our birth column and go down to green because that's amphibian. So hatch from eggs. So that'll help us answer our question. So do amphibians lay eggs, hide from predators, live in water only, or live only on the land? Well, B, C, and D actually have nothing to do with how they give birth. And if you look at the picture, what are these little jelly-looking things? Those are the eggs, okay? They're giving us lots of hints. All right, number 4, reptiles are animals that have bodies covered in A, slime, B, feathers, C, scales, or D, bumps. And it has a picture of a snake. All right, so we're going to look at our body covering column. We're going to go down to purple. Okay, it says rough, dry skin. So it doesn't exactly say what they're covered with. So we're going to have to use our memory and think about what we talked about in class. All right, so let's look at these. We know that reptiles don't have feathers. Okay, so we can cross that out. Right here on our cheat sheet, it says their skin is dry. If they have dry skin, that probably means they don't have slime because slime is wet and gooey. All right? So we're down to 2, scales and bumps. Now, you could make an argument for both of these answers, okay, because there are some reptiles that do have bumps. I'm thinking of like some types of lizards like an iguana. They're kind of bumpy. But for the most part, if we're talking about snakes, I would say scales are probably our best bet. Okay, these are different kind of scales than fish scales, okay? Fish scales are wet and smooth. Reptile scales, they are dry and bumpy, but they are still kind of scaly. All right, number 5, where do most reptiles live? On land, in fresh water, in salt water, or in a tundra? All right, so we know fresh water would be like a pond, a lake, maybe a river. Salt water would be the ocean or some type of sea. And we know what land is. Tundra is like very cold, snowy, frozen ground, like Alaska or Russia. I doubt they have many reptiles in Alaska. It's just too cold. So we're going to cross that out because that's not a possibility. All right. So, most reptiles, if we're talking about lizards, alligators, crocodiles, think about that. Where do you picture them mostly? I picture them on the land, by water. Okay? They do go in the water, but they don't live in the water like a fish lives in the water. Okay? They have lungs. They don't have gills, so they have to come up and get air. So, A is our best answer on this one. All right, number 6, which of the following is an example of a reptile? Okay, it gave us some pictures. Goldfish, frog, alligator, jellyfish. All right, so let's think about a goldfish. We know it has scales. It lays eggs. It is cold-blooded. But it has gills. It only can survive under the water. Okay, so goldfish, out. Okay, we've been talking about frogs on all of the other questions. But that was for, I'm just realizing that was for amphibian. Okay, so that's good. Frog is out because frog is, oh, you guys can't see, I'm sorry. Frog is an amphibian. Alligator. All right, alligator has rough, dry, bumpy skin, cold-blooded, lives on the land but likes to swim in the water sometimes. It lays eggs. Let's see what else. Has lungs. I think our best answer is alligator. And we know jellyfish doesn't work because a jellyfish doesn't have, it has no bones. It's an invertebrate. Now, we didn't get to spend a ton of time talking about invertebrates because school got cut off. But we did talk about them just a little bit. All right, number 7, what do reptiles use to breathe? All right, well, our handy dandy reference sheet will tell us that. Reptiles in purple, and we go over to breathing, and it says lungs breathe in oxygen. Okay, so number 7 would be B. Number 8, birds use their blank to breathe. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to look at birds, which is in orange. Okay, birds going across, they use lungs. So number 8, A. Number 9, what is the most common feature birds have that other vertebrates do not? Okay, so let's look at these. A, limbs. Limbs are like arms and legs, okay? If we think about it, birds have wings and legs. Alligators have legs. Frogs have legs. We have arms and legs. The only thing that's doesn't have legs would really be like a fish and a snake. Okay, nose. Well, alligators have noses. I know dogs have noses. We have noses. Eyes. All of them have eyes. Okay, D, feathers. We don't have feathers. Excuse me. Alligators don't have feathers. Elephants don't have feathers. I think it's the only one. So that's our best choice. All right, number 10, birds. A, live in water. Okay, we know that's not true. I know geese and ducks, they don't live in under the water. Sometimes they swim on top, but birds do not have live birth because we know birds lay eggs. Okay, there's that right there. And we know birds don't have scales. They have feathers as their body covering. So that was pretty easy. We didn't even need our cheat sheet for that one. All right. Tuesday. Number 1, vertebrates are animals with backbones. They are divided into 5 classes. Okay, and these are the classes. These 5 right here. Okay. They are divided into 5 classes, which include fish and amphibians. Name the other 3. Okay, so mammal is 1. Bird. And reptile. Number 2, blank, such as frogs, are covered with smooth skin. They spend part of their lives in water and part of their lives on land. Okay, so they talked about body covering and where they live. So if we go under body covering and we look for smooth skin, we get amphibian. Now let's check and make sure. Okay, we know that frogs, that's our picture, frogs are a type of amphibian, so I think that's our best answer. All right, number 3, reptiles are animals that have bodies covered in slime, scales, or feathers. All right, we know we can cross out feathers. Even by the picture, we can tell snake doesn't have feathers. Okay, if we use our reference sheet and we look at reptile, reptile has rough, dry skin. It doesn't say anything about having slime or any kind of jelly, gooey covering. So, scales it is. Number 4, where vertebrates live determines how they breathe. Fish live in water and use what to breathe? Do they use their scales, lungs, or gills? Well, let's use our reference sheet. We're going to look at fish and go over to the way, excuse me, the way they breathe. And it says gills, breathe oxygen in the water. We talked about that. Gills are kind of like a filter. They suck in water, they take in the oxygen from the water, and then they push it all back out. All right, so gills. And number 5, the body temperature of fish is cold when the water around them is cold and warm when the water around them is warm. That means that fish are warm-blooded, cold-blooded, or can live on land. Well, let's use our cheat sheet. Fish, blood type, cold-blooded. It means the temperature changes with the environment. So, put a little X right there. All right, number 6, circle the reptile. Okay, we know jellyfish is not a vertebrate because it has no bones. Reptile lays eggs, is cold-blooded. It doesn't give live birth. It doesn't produce milk. It has dry, bumpy skin. So which one of these do you think is a reptile? I think it's the turtle. Number 7, what is the most common feature birds have that other vertebrates do not? Okay, that's a repeat question from Monday's work, and we know it is feathers. Number 8, blank are vertebrates that have hair or fur. They produce milk to feed their young. Okay, and it has a picture of a cat. So think about what type of animal is a cat. It is a mammal. All right, number 9. What is one characteristic that reptiles and amphibians have in common? Okay, so in common means same. So amphibians and reptiles, we have to look for things that are the same about them. Are they both cold-blooded? Do they both breathe through gills? Or do they both only live in water? Okay, well, this makes it easy. Reptile and amphibian are right next to each other on our chart, so we can go and look. Okay, so let's, it doesn't ask about body covering. It asks about whether they are both cold-blooded. Okay, so amphibian is cold-blooded. Reptile is cold-blooded. Let's just double check everything else. Okay, breathing. Amphibians use gills and lungs, where reptiles only use lungs, so those aren't the same. And both amphibians and reptiles live on the land but travel to the water. They don't only live in the water. Okay, so we're going to go with cold-blooded. Remember, if they lay out in the sun, their blood is going to warm up by the warmth of the sun. If they go dig a hole underground where it's cold, their body temperature will cool off. Okay, last one, number 10. Which is one characteristic that birds, reptiles, and mammals all have in common? Okay. Are they all cold-blooded, all warm-blooded, or all use lungs to breathe? Okay, so it said birds, reptiles, and mammals. So let's do cold-blooded first. Let's check that. So mammals are warm-blooded. Birds are warm-blooded. Reptiles are cold-blooded. Okay, so those are not the same. So it's not the first one. And we know it's not the second one because they're not all warm-blooded. Let's check the breathing though. Lungs, lungs, lungs. Okay, everybody uses lungs. Great job.